Over 8 hours of footage has been released by the Providence Police Department, showing what happened in July when cops detained 3 teenage suspects. Several of the 41 videos now available for public viewing shows Officer Domingo Diaz allegedly punching an already restrained juvenile until he is pulled away by a fellow officer. Moans and crying can be heard on the video. After he is moved, Diaz walks back. Police confirm one of the suspects was taken to the hospital that night. The crowd that gathered around the arrest scene is heard asking the Providence police to stop. Though dozens of cops are seen in the video, 2 police officers, Domingo Diaz and Mitchell Royer, have been suspended with pay, pending an investigation into their use of force during the arrest. Providence, Rhode Island Mayor Jorge Elorza said, quote, "I fully support the suspension of these 2 officers, taking their guns away, taking them off the streets, and holding them accountable." President of the Providence Police Union, Michael Imondi, said in a statement, "The investigation surrounding this incident should be full and complete before judgment is passed on any of the actions taken to facilitate the arrest of these subjects." These videos are the culmination of a several hours long chase.
The drop top is down, so it's open.
2 15-year-olds and a 16-year-old allegedly pointed a BB gun at civilians and police out of a convertible car,
Hands on your chin, do it now!
leading to, as the Boston Globe reports, over 770 police radio calls. The teens were charged with 2 counts of felony assault with a deadly weapon and conspiracy. Because they are under 18, the suspects are not publicly identified. No charges have been filed against the police officers.
RCMP in Cumberland are being accused of police brutality tonight. It comes after a video was uploaded to social media showing a 14-year-old boy being restrained by an officer. Witnesses say the Mountie assaulted the boy, but police say the video doesn't tell the whole story. CTV's Gord Kurbis reports.
Stop! That's my neck!
Get your hand off the kid's neck. What are you doing? He's younger than me.
An altercation between a Comox Valley RCMP officer and a 14-year-old is caught on camera. It's a situation some say should never have happened.
It was brutal. It was brutal. The cop had him around the throat like this. He was tripping him. He was on top of him. He was crushing the kid's head into the ground.
Marcia Hurd is the manager at a Cumberland bar close to where the Saturday incident happened. She was drawn to the street by loud yelling, which took place after the officer tried to stop the teen for riding without a helmet, riding on the sidewalk, and refusing to give the officer his name.
A lot of people say he was being disrespectful. He should have just told the cop his name, which, okay, maybe he should have. But was that amount of force necessary?
What are you right now? You assaulted a minor.
The officer is confronted by several witnesses, including a prominent Cumberland hairdresser, Jean Cameron, who tried to come to the teen's rescue.
She's an icon. She's a pillar of the community. And I'm very upset that she's being charged with obstructing police when the video clearly shows that there is no obstruction.
Tim Rooney is a friend of Cameron's, and he collected 3 cell phone videos of the incident. Those videos are now being reviewed by the RCMP. A statement by RCMP says the video does not show the officer conducting a legal stop, nor does it show the male allegedly refuse to identify himself and become verbally abusive with the officer. Surrounded by angry residents, the officer called for backup. 6 more vehicles quickly arrived. Police say situations like this can be very challenging for an officer who is alone among a group of arguably volatile people. Rooney believes the officer, seen here in one of our earlier news stories, needs to be reprimanded. He believes the member owes the teen, the community, and especially Cameron an apology.
She's worried that she's going to have a criminal record. She's worried that the police are going to target her store.
The matter is expected to begin going before the courts on March 24th. Gord Kurbis, CTV News, Cumberland.
Police brutality is a pressing issue characterized by the excessive use of force or abuse of power by law enforcement officers. It has sparked widespread concerns and protests in recent years, with incidents often leading to serious injuries or even fatalities among civilians, disproportionately affecting marginalized communities.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of Speak Your Mind. We're here ready to give you guys the program and our topic of the night. Let's see if we can show it now on the bottom of your screen, where we are talking about a reform in the police. Do you think that Canada needs a police reform? Or like it says there, is police brutality a growing concern in our society? I am not here by myself, but I do have Mrs. Audrey. Miss Audrey, how you doing this night?
Hello, good evening, Pastor. I'm well, thank you, and welcome everybody to another episode of Speak Your Mind.
You can call us right now if you want. You who watch us in this moment and have something to say about this topic, we have our numbers that are going to pop up in the bottom of your screen, 877-785-8700, or you can send us a message through WhatsApp right now. That's 437-233-9815. And Mrs. Audrey reminding everybody that we have a live poll now in Telegram, correct?
Correct, Pastor. So they can go ahead and scan the QR code as it appears, on their screen, and they can go ahead and join our live poll. There you have the question: do you think that there should be a police reform? Yes, Canada needs one. Or do you think, no, I think we're fine? Let us know what you think. And as well, again, don't forget our WhatsApp number. You can send your messages, your comments, and we'll be reading it here, 437-233-9815.
The numbers are completely open and at your disposal. We're going to be answering some phone calls in a little bit. But first, I want to show you guys here in Canada, unfortunate police-involved deaths that are on the rise. We'll be right back.
There is evidence police use of deadly force in this country is on the rise, according to information gathered by academics and advocacy groups. It found in 2022, police officers killed 69 people, the highest number in a single year. And there are persistent racial disparities. Black and Indigenous people account for more than 27% of police-involved shooting deaths. The group says no government body in Canada tracks police killings. And as Heather Urix West reports, that data is crucial if anything is going to change.
On Christmas Day at this gas station in Strathmore, Alberta, a Siksika First Nation man became one of 69 people killed last year by police,
which according to our data is the highest on record that we've seen.
Criminologist Alexandra McClelland is the principal investigator of a new data and transparency project that is working to bring the number of police-involved deaths to light. Going back to the year 2000, the project found there have been 704 police-involved deaths where there was use of force, with most of those deaths occurring within the last 10 years. In fact, researchers found a 66.5% increase in the number of deaths recorded between 2011 and 2022 compared to the previous 10-year period.
We decided to develop this database, make it transparent to the Canadian public so that people can hold to account, ask questions, there can be scrutiny, accountability.
After a Minneapolis police officer murdered George Floyd, an unarmed Black man, in the summer of 2020, the issue became an emotional flashpoint. The use of force of police was scrutinized like never before. 3 years later, the new Canadian data set shows things are becoming much worse.
Indigenous people, Black people, people of color are amongst those that are most impacted by police-involved deaths.
The data set doesn't track the circumstances leading to each officer-involved death, and the Ontario Provincial Police Association believes more research is required to explain why these numbers are on the rise.
It's hard to say if we're policing in a more dangerous time, but 5 police officers have been killed in the line of duty in Canada in the last 6 months or so. That's very concerning to the law enforcement community.
Another set of disturbing numbers that highlight a serious problem facing Canadian communities and the need for impactful change. Heather Urix West, Global News, Calgary.
877-785-8700 is the number to call. We already have Martin with us. Let's see if we can connect him now. Hello, Martin. Do you hear me?
Yes, I hear you loud and clear.
How you doing, Martin, on this evening?
Doing real good, doing real good.
Martin, real quick, we've been asking everybody the following question of tonight's topic, which is, do you think that we need a police reform? Or in other words, about police brutality, do you think it's something that we should already start working on and retraining our police?
Most definitely, most definitely. I've seen my fair share of videos, you know, body cam footages, and I just seen police. Some police out there real trigger happy, real trigger happy. I've seen some crazy things that, you know, shouldn't using their you know, using that authority that they have, a little overdoing it sometimes, you know, like what we see with George Floyd as well. I've seen the video of the police that put his knee on his neck, and I honestly thought it was way too much. And then I've seen other occasions, you know, where some cops when they shot somebody when they shouldn't have, and it was dash cam. It was a footage on the chest.
Now, Martin, under your occupation, I see that it says youth pastor. In any way, shape, or form, have you ever attended somebody, or maybe you yourself, have you ever had problems with the police?
In the past, yes, I have. In the past, yes, I have.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So before I became a youth pastor, I was I hung around with all my friends were gang members. I hung around with only gangs, drug traffickers. So I had plenty of problems with the police, and you know, even just like stops, you know, when the cops stopped me and my friends, it was you know, sometimes they would use too much of their authority. Sometimes they would do things that was unnecessary. I've seen them take one of my friends out one time. There was this one time that my friend was hiding from the cops. He was hiding from the cops, and he was hiding in my house. And the cops, I seen the cops like grab him. When they found him, they grabbed him, and they were tossing him around like a rag doll. Tossing him around like a rag doll, slamming him all over the place, dragging him. And by the next time, after he got out of jail and everything, I saw him, he was like all bloody on his face, all scabbed up because of what they did. Which was unnecessary. He didn't have nothing. He wasn't drawing any guns on him. He wasn't being disobedient. They found him and they just started throwing him around like a rag doll.
Now, Martin, just to be a little bit controversial here, you said that, well, obviously you're not the same person anymore, but you used to hang out with, you were basically gang affiliated and drug traffickers. Do you think at any certain moment that's kind of brought upon you, like you're kind of asking to be, you know, manhandled, thrown like a rag doll?
I would get if it was like something like, I would get if there was any resistance towards us, if I was resisting or if I had a gun drawn or anything, but it wasn't like it wasn't like we were trying to resist them, you know.
In other words, there was no back and forth.
No, not at all, not at all. No back and forth. Like they just opened up, they found us, and boom, that was it.
And so you say that there are police officers that are a bit trigger happy and they kind of abuse their authority. When that being said, you think we need a reform?
Most definitely.
Martin, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to have your opinion on this matter. Have a good night, okay?
You as well.
Mrs. Audrey, like you see there, Martin, who today is a youth pastor, he was somebody who had his own fair share of experience. Do we have any comments already on this matter?
We do, Pastor. We have Wayne that actually says like this: when people speak about police brutality, people usually say the solution is to defund the police. It's a horrible idea. It's all about reallocating a portion of policing budget, more money for homelessness, food security, access to detox and rehab facilities, social workers for mental health crisis, and well-trained police forces and job training. I believe that's the solution because, as Wayne here says, police brutality is a growing concern in our society. So we should figure out how to solve the solution instead of just point fingers and blame the police.
You can keep giving us a call in this moment, 877-785-8700, or through our WhatsApp, 437-233-9815. I want to show you guys our next video so that way we can go a little bit more deeper about what happens with police brutality. We'll be right back.
A black man in Toronto testified in court today that he was the victim of racism at the hands of police, all over a bus fare. CTV's Mirella Fernandez has the story and a warning for you tonight. The footage you're about to see is disturbing.
A male refusing to get off.
December 2019, a Toronto bus driver put out a radio call for help. He said a passenger was told to get off the bus and wouldn't. That man is Chase Richards. He says he didn't get off because he'd paid his fare. Minutes later, 2 Toronto police detectives showed up. They were not in uniform. Richards testified Detective Christopher Hutchins, seen in the plaid shirt, said to the bus driver, "Is this the expletive that is causing the problem?" 20 seconds later, this happened. Richards says he was grabbed by the throat and held that way for about 30 seconds.
But it's certainly not something police train to do, to grab somebody like that.
Richards was then pushed to the ground and handcuffed. After that, the detective sat down and put his feet on Richards' back.
If in fact he was resisting, the officer would have been down on the ground with him.
Hutchings is being tried for assault. He's been on the force for 24 years. Right now, he's suspended with pay. Video from the patrol car was also reviewed today in court.
I got choked. Okay, he physically choked me.
Richards was arrested for causing a disturbance and mischief. The charges were later withdrawn. He told the court today he felt like race was an issue from the start, saying, "I don't think if it was a young white male that entered on the back of the bus, he would go through all that ordeal."
It's absolutely awful the way that Black people need to always be thinking about how they are appearing in public space to other people.
Toronto police would not speak to a specific case, but did release a statement today saying they teach their officers to use proportionate force and do not teach neck restraint or chokeholds as a standard. This trial resumes in September. Lisa.
All right, Mirella Fernandez with the surveillance video tonight.
That was Mrs. Audrey, a bit concerning, no? Especially when it happens here in Toronto. Do you have any more comments?
We do. We have an interesting one from Naomi that she says like this: "I hate to say it, but I don't think you're ever going to get rid of the culture that's in police force. So I still stand by my belief that should be held accountable fully, and that the police credentials get taken away if they abuse their powers, and that they should be able to have their pensions or whatever gone after if they use excessive force. And remember, the bad ones did this, and the good ones aren't the ones that should be blamed for it. I believe that if you want companies to abide by the environmental laws, hit them in their wallet." This was said by David Skolke. And the same should be held true for special police forces, police officers that break the law and thinking that they can hide behind a badge. Remember, everyone obeys the law when it affects them in their wallet. So this is her opinion in regards to police brutality.
And now we have with us, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Williamson on the phone. Hello, do you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Good night. Thanks for having me.
Good evening, Mr. Mr. Williamson, real quick, a little bit of a backstory. You work close to inmates, if I have that correct. Connecting to the question that we have today about police brutality, or especially here in Canada, do you think we are in need of a police reform?
Well, to be honest, I don't believe that Canada really needs a police reform. And I must say that there's everything that can be improved or needs improvement. But when it comes down to Canada and police brutality, like Canada in the ranking doesn't even fit in the top 10 of countries with police brutality in comparison to our neighbor, the United States, who is ranked 7th in the world. Canada doesn't even fit in the top 10. So when we think about police brutality here, we're way far from needing a reform. When we look at the statistics, Canada is doing very well. I'm not saying that there doesn't need improvement, but a reform in Canada, that's not necessary.
So then, Mr. Williamson, how would you then justify, for example, what we just finished watching about a cop getting on the bus and choking a man. Do you think that what you're stating can cover what happened in that experience?
Well, I'm not saying that there's not isolated incidents, but when you think about the number of incidents per capita, it's not as much. It's few and far in between in comparison to other countries. So if you talk about reforming would be a reforming of the system if it's a large number, it's on a large scale. Just isolated incidents, something that's rampant, not something that's happening frequently.
So you're saying comparing it to other countries, we're not as bad.
Exactly, and when we talk about brutality, I don't know if you're familiar with other countries or things that that happen in the United States. Like that's very rare in Canada. It might happen to isolated incidents, but nothing in comparison to other places. And when we think about the nature of Canadian people, we think about the aggression. Canadians don't really manifest that level of aggression that needs brute force like other places. They're not confront. How could they don't confront the police that much because of the charismatic relationship between police and civilians.
Now, Mr. Williamson, real quick, just to finish up, have you ever, because I know you work close with inmates at a jail, have you ever heard their opinion on it? Have they ever said anything about the police force? Any comments on that?
When it comes down to correction, you would really find that because of the stringent laws of Canada, police don't get to, or correctional officers, if I can put it this way, don't get the opportunity to exercise certain brutal force. For you to understand, I was speaking a few weeks ago to an inmate, and he was telling me just a few things that took place in prison, and he was saying that you have inmates that throw urine on correctional officers, and then we think the initial response from correctional officers would be more like violent. But in most cases, there's never anything that really happens. There's no beating, there's no. I think they act in a professional way to deal with matters of frustrated people, frustrated inmates, or frustrated civilians. So I think in most cases, they're very professional in the way that they deal with things when it comes down to civilians or inmates.
Mr. Williamson, thank you so much for speaking your mind with us, for sharing your thoughts. Have a good night, okay?
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Take care. Now we're going to hit the streets of Toronto to see what people here around the community had to say about today's question. We'll be right back.
What do you think is the current state of the police?
In public opinion, it's probably in turmoil, right? But I think they think it's going pretty well.
The police system needs a lot of reinforcement and a lot of adjustments because it's like they're getting paid, but they're not really doing their job. They're not really protecting society.
They're a necessary part of society, but they're focusing on the wrong things. Things like treating homeless people like criminals, drug addicts like criminals. I think that's the wrong way to go about it. But at the end of the day, they're necessary in terms of upholding law, because otherwise, humans wouldn't do so great if left on their own, I don't think. But I think they're focusing on the wrong things.
Yeah, I just think they need a lot of adjustment, a lot.
Have you had any experience with the police? If so, did they help you?
They both helped and hindered me. I've had several negative run-ins as a cannabis user when it was illegal. Some negative stuff. As a disruptive teenager, some negative stuff. But in general, I've been very privileged. I haven't really had too much negative. Personally, I haven't had too much negative.
I don't think I've had like a severe experience where like it's life or death or like I'm like shaking, but I think I've seen situations where like police got involved, but they never really handled the situation the way I thought that they could have handled it. Like they are either, I'll probably say like passive towards the situation, or they brushed it off lightly. When I'm just like, as a police officer, I think you should put more effort into like the situation, whether it's, I don't know, stealing or actual like endangerment. I think there's certain protocols that need to be like readjusted and handled differently.
What are the problems with the police right now?
My gut instinct is they're helping less than they're worth, but I don't know. I couldn't say.
Their main job is to serve and protect society. As in, if something's happening, they should be the first people of contact, if in terms of like any endangerment. But like, I don't think they're doing their job. I think they're putting more harm to society, because when you think of police now, you get scared. You don't think they're going to help you, especially as like a colored individual. You're just, yeah, need a lot of adjustments.
The last thing, are we investing too much into the police? Investing too much money?
Absolutely. I don't know what they're getting paid for. Like, they have a pretty decent salary. And when I look at what they do, I'm like, that money needs to be reinvested elsewhere into people who actually need it, like housing. Like, there's people who actually need the money that we're investing into police officers. They're getting paid for doing nothing. I don't think they do their job properly. That's just my opinion.
I think definitely we're investing too much. You think you look at all the ways, all the scandals that have happened with what they invest their money into, and I don't think it's right. I don't think they are. I don't think they're the appropriate workforce for what they want to do in terms of like helping people who need help.
And we're back. You can keep calling us 877-785-8700 or through WhatsApp 437-233-9815. We have with us now Nathan. Let's see if we can connect him now. Hello, Nathan. Do you hear us?
Yes, hello.
How you doing, Nathan?
Great.
Nathan, we've been asking everybody the following question. If you think we need a police reform, or in other words, do you think police brutality is something that is on the rise or something that we should be careful and look to change?
Yes. The way I see it, there does need to be police reform, but not in a large scale. Of course, it should be there, but in kind of baby steps, as in kind of not reteaching, but teaching new tactics on how to better community police instead of treat others as if it's an us versus them mentality.
Yeah.
There are a lot of cops who feel that they're under threat due to the stories getting pinned on them as bad guys. Of course, there are moments where we make mistakes and it does hurt their reputation, but most of them feel like it's kind of targeted against them. So it kind of, they need to have a better understanding of how we see them rather than it's all about their perspective.
Now, do you think, Nathan, that's something that you're taught? For example, do you think that's something that police officers are taught in their academy? Is there something that maybe makes police officers have that inside of them already?
Oh, yes, definitely. I have visited some academies during my time in some programs, and there are a lot of, I would say, culture, as in pride. They do pride themselves a lot, and I can see it as a way of them using that as a bit of a way to feel a bit, I guess, superior.
Yeah. So so basically, instead of it a whole reformation, more like an update, more like honing more skills to learn how to break down certain situations that come up, especially now with the culture that society has created, because now everything is recorded, now everything is taken into a whole different context. Do you think a lot of police officers, or do you think the officers that we have now, do you think they would be in agreement to that? Do you think there'd be some resistance?
From my personal experience with some officers I've met and talked to, I feel like they would appreciate an update in techniques and policing. Their teachings now are a bit outdated, and of course, times change really rapidly in various ways, and they do feel like they're a bit stuck in time. Their transition isn't as fast as it should be.
Understand. Nathan, thank you so much for speaking your mind and for sharing your thoughts with us.
Of course.
Have a good night, okay?
You too.
437-233-9815, or you can give us a call right now, 877-785-8700. Let's go to our next segment about police reform, and we'll be right back.
Amid the protest wave following the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis, calls for broader changes have once again gained momentum in the United States. At rallies across the nation, protesters have chanted the slogan, "Defund the police." Some mean this in a literal sense. Others use it as a rallying cry to broadly demand police reform. But what would such reforms look like? It helps to take a look at other countries that have made changes to prevent police brutality. Sweden, for example, has narrowed the role of its police force and is now deploying mental health nurses to some emergencies. And German police officers have to go through 2 to 3 years of training, focusing on de-escalation techniques. Even after they graduate, they still need to attend seminars multiple times a year. International comparisons of police and justice systems are always tricky, considering that the US, for example, is estimated to have 6 times more civilian firearms per capita than Germany. Like most countries, Germany is not immune to allegations of police brutality. But in comparison with the US, accusations of abuse of power appear to be on a very different scale. The US has around 4 times the population of Germany. But in 2018, US officers shot and killed approximately 990 people, whereas German officers killed 11. That means over 20 times more people were shot and killed per capita in the US than in Germany. To understand why those differences exist, I traveled to a police training school in the eastern German state of Brandenburg. Rainer Grieger is the president of the school. When he saw the recent images of US protests on German TV, he responded to an email from the Obama Foundation about the protests over George Floyd's death, and he offered his advice on police reform. He says he didn't hear back from anyone, but he still thinks that he and his colleagues may have some valuable ideas that could help their US counterparts.
As I saw the video with Mr. Floyd, my first thought was, these colleagues are no police colleagues. These are murderers. In the moment in Germany, when we have some people in our custody, we are responsible for the health of these people. We ask them, can you breathe? Do you have any pain?
Although there is little data on the amount of de-escalation training US officers receive, American public media found in a 2017 investigation that officers in most police departments in the state of Georgia had less than 1 hour of de-escalation training over the previous 5 years. Until the last few years, Georgia did not have mandatory in-service de-escalation training for police. While in Germany, police officers spent more time learning de-escalation techniques than how to shoot. In Brandenburg, the police wants to show me one of their routine exercises. In the simulation, a suspect is caught while trying to break into a car.
Was machen Sie da? Was wollt ihr? Messer! Folgen Sie meinen Anweisungen! Folgen Sie meinen Anweisungen! Lassen Sie das Messer fallen!
Then, a moment of relief. The suspect complies with their orders and drops his knife. The officers stop pointing their guns directly at him. That is the German approach. As soon as a criminal or someone who is about to be arrested de-escalates, the police also de-escalates in that sense. But in a second, more tense scenario, the suspect ignores the officer's warnings after dropping his knife, and he continues to approach the officers. They have only seconds to decide, does he have a second knife, maybe even a firearm? To de-escalate the situation, the officers decide to put away their guns and arm themselves with a baton and pepper spray instead. The pepper spray is used. Now they're putting his arms on his back and telling him to put his head on the side, which is really crucial because it means that they're able to see if something is wrong with him, if there are any problems, if he can't breathe or anything.
kann noch antworten. Dementsprechend können wir davon ausgehen, er ist nicht in diesem Überlebensmodus. Also nicht in den autonomen geschützten Reserven, wo der Körper wirklich nur auf Überleben geht. Das sind für uns ganz wichtige Signale, die wir versuchen immer zu berücksichtigen in unserem Vorgehen.
Throughout the entire exercise, the officers explain to the suspect what they will do next in order to calm him. Watching from the sidelines, Senior Police Officer Lux tells me that the aim is that the suspect feels as safe as possible.
Er ist in unserem Gewahrsam und damit geht das einher für den Polizisten, dass er in der Fürsorgepflicht ist. Aber der Polizei ist ein Freund und Helfer, auch in so einer Situation. Das darf man dabei nie vergessen, auch wenn es eine gefährliche Situation ist.
But what if the suspect had drawn a second knife or a firearm? At the shooting range, the officers want to show me how the worst-case scenario could have played out. But to my surprise, their shooting range is unlike any I've ever seen before.
So what's interesting here is that the goal is to not shoot, even though it is a shooting range.
The movement against police brutality has called for increased transparency, accountability, and reforms in policing practices. These reforms may include improved training, de-escalation tactics, and better oversight to ensure that law enforcement officers uphold their duty to protect and serve while respecting the rights and dignity of all individuals. Addressing police brutality remains a crucial step towards building trust between communities and the police, fostering a safer and more just society.
Defund the police was always going to be a losing political movement because it turns out police officers are necessary and important. Unfortunately, the political left wasted a lot of time and energy of Canadians debating the reckless and unlikely idea of defunding the police. All of that time and energy could have been used to talk about real, tangible, practical changes to the criminal justice system. This week, we learned that Canada's biggest city, Toronto, is going to increase the police budget by tens of millions of dollars. The Toronto Police Services Board voted unanimously to increase the police budget by $48 million. And that's a pretty significant turnaround because over the last few years, Toronto politicians have been busy trying to please defund the police activists. Back in 2020, Toronto Mayor John Tory, during the summer of Black Lives Matter, promised to reduce the police budget by reallocating dollars that were supposed to go to police officers to quote unquote community safety models. Well, what Mayor Tory learned, much like many of the other supporters of defund the police, is that there is no community safety model that exists without police officers. This realization from politicians and activists in Toronto follows some revelations in other Canadian cities. Like last year, when Vancouver voted for a mayor, Ken Sim, who promised to hire more police officers, not fewer. And Vancouver's added 100 cops as of November 2020. Before that, it was Montreal. In Montreal, voters rejected a defund the police candidate as mayor, re-elected Mayor Valérie Plante, who promised to invest tens of millions of dollars
into policing. So it's quite clear by now, Canadians have made their choice. Through voting, they have rejected defunding the police. But if you are a person who wants a better criminal justice system, who recognizes that there are problems that need to be addressed, you don't need to hang your hat on a reckless, silly idea like defund the police. There are legitimate policies that we can be turning our attention to. For example, in cities all across Canada, we can be strengthening our citizens' complaint process. So it's easier for citizens to draw attention to police officers who don't follow the rules. We can also be establishing a college to create professional standards for all police officers to be held accountable to. There is no shortage of good ideas out there. And now that we can finally say goodbye to defund the police, maybe we can start getting some real action accomplished.
And now we have with us Alex. Let's see if we can connect them now. Alex, do you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good evening, Alex. How you doing?
Good evening. Doing good. Doing good. Ending the day.
Alex, we're asking everybody the following question about police brutality. Do you think it's a growing concern that should take the police to have a reform?
I do believe it is a concern because now I don't believe it's something new. I just now with social media, camera phones, it's just being documented now. I don't believe it. We need an entire reformation. I think it's more of a training issue, specifically on how to de-escalate situations. So I think I'm more for having them go through, better training, especially everyone that's coming in, because most of the stuff that's documented, it's shown. Most of the time it's new. It's newer police that are entering the forces.
Yeah.
Every now and then there are some that are like from before, but it's mostly the new ones. I think it's more of a training thing.
Now, there's a gentleman who said that there are a lot of police officers who are a bit trigger happy. They kind of like to abuse their authority. Do you agree with that statement?
I do agree with that, and that's why I also believe that I think there should be a way for them to incorporate who should really be a police officer and really who shouldn't, like testing for, like whenever they do testing for when someone wants to go buy a firearm, they do background checks and stuff like that. And even though background checks it doesn't really do much, but I think they should go through psychological evaluations, and that would help weed out not 100% of them, but a good chunk of them.
So you think it's basically all with the training, and we kind of need to be a little stricter, go a little more deeper into how we let officers have that authority. Is that what I'm receiving?
Yes, that is correct.
Alex, thank you so much for speaking your mind with us. Have a good night, okay?
Thank you, sir. Good night.
Mrs. Audrey, now the results of our poll.
Yes, Pastor. So we have 57% that say yes, Canada needs one. They absolutely believe that there should be a police reform. And 43% think, no, we're fine. So there we have it, the final results of our poll for tonight. And I also actually would like to share a last comment from Jessica that she says here. I believe the police officers joined the force, as they say, to serve and protect. Because of maybe some bad examples and not correcting it sooner, that it has become unacceptable and now out of hand. Police reform is necessary. However, I do believe that the community needs to cooperate as well.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Audrey. And I would love to speak my mind according to what the word of God shows us. He says like this: he who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. Usually, a lot of the times, police brutality, abuse of authority with police to the public, I think it has to do with being at the wrong place at the wrong time. But I can put an end to that. When my life is in the hands of God, I am protected. I am under him. I abide in him. And he keeps me safe. And he keeps me free from doing things that can even contradict that. So if you're right now in a place of danger, if you right now watch us in this moment and you say, you know what, Pastor, I need protection, I would love to make this prayer for you. I want to show you this testimony now, and when we return, we're going to be praying in favor of all of you. So if you can, prepare now a cup of water, and I want you to pay attention to Joseph's story. When we come back, we'll be praying for all of you. We'll be back.
Supernatural faith, obedience,
I was able to drink the glass of water.
made their miracle possible.
Yeah, I was a truck driver, and I had to be in and out of the truck. It was refrigerated, and I caught pneumonia. I lost 35 pounds in 6 days. About a couple of years after that, I had to go in the hospital for my intestines was tangled up. And I stayed in the VA for a month and a half. I was driving and I hit my feet up against something on the dashboard, and I didn't pay any attention because I couldn't feel it, because of the nerves and ligaments and everything gone in that foot. Got home, put my shoe off, it was full of blood. I rushed to the hospital, and then when the doctor saw it, he said, man, this thing turned black mighty sudden, and he cut it off. He said, it's gonna have to come off. So it was about halfway black then, and he told me, he explained to me that if he didn't cut the whole toe off. So that healed up, and lo and behold, I was checked for cancer. Then I had prostate cancer. That came on me pretty fast, so I had to hurry and do something. So they took my prostate out, and I started feeling myself going down. And I said, well, this not gonna work. But I went back to the hospital, explaining to them what was happening. So I could hardly walk during this time. So the doctor told me that I was okay. And here I am. I'm in a wheelchair getting in and out to go to the doctor. They said, I'm gonna ship it down to Augusta, Georgia till we get a bed open. So I stayed there for 3 months. I stayed in Augusta. But when I first got there, I couldn't even feed myself. I couldn't wash myself. I couldn't walk. I couldn't do nothing. But I started praying to God because I know God has the answer to all our prayers. I think I heard over the radio or the TV about this church. And I said, man, that sounds like a mighty good church. So I started coming here. When I first come in here, I was using it to walk everywhere. So now, that's an improvement. So I'm coming. It's just taking me a little longer, but I'm coming. I'm not giving up on God and faith, the church, and nobody. Because I know who God is, and I know what he can do. And I know what he will do. I drink the blessed water every day. Every single day. I feel a whole lot better for that because that used to be a pain. That used to be pain all the time. So now that I'm drinking the blessed water, I don't have that kind of pain like that no more. I can walk to the ramp, and I can walk up the ramp. I can come in the church. I walk every day around the compound about 5 times. I can tell by my hand I'm getting better and better and better because I can take this hand, I can do certain things that I couldn't do. I can, circle my word puzzle. I can go in the kitchen, I can cook. My shoulders used to pop when I lift them like this. So you don't hardly hear that. You don't hear, you might hear it once, but you don't hear that all the time. Every time when I move my arm, it will pop. And now it doesn't do that. But the thing is, I believe in God, and I believe in the Holy Spirit. I believe in my faith. I go to sleep at night, and if I turn on one side of the bed, I turn my head to the right, I didn't feel it. I turn to the left, I will feel it. But I put the oil on my head, and I ain't feel nothing. I didn't feel nothing. I went on to sleep. I had to sleep with a sleep apnea machine. I went to sleep. And I didn't wake up till the next morning. And I just didn't have no pain for a while. No pain at all.
Supernatural faith, obedience,
I was able to drink the glass of water.
made their miracle possible.
lift up my eyes to the hills. From where does my help come? My help comes from my Lord, who made heaven and earth. He won't let my foot be moved. He who keeps me is the Lord, the one who keeps Israel.
Prepare a glass of water or get closer to your television screen. At this moment, we will have a special prayer to your name.
My God, in Jesus' name, I pray right now for this person who watches us in this moment, who, like many people who have suffered at the hands of the misuse of authority, people, my Lord, who have been deceived, mistreated. That's this person's reality now. Nothing in their life has been going right for them, to the point where they feel depressed, sad. They feel as if there's no way out. They're the ones who say, I've knocked on every door, but my Lord, I promise that in the moment that they come here and use their faith, they're going to see what they've never seen before. A united family, children free from drugs. Inside of them, that void is going to be filled. But my God, that's only possible if this person now believes. So if you believe in this moment, receive right now the strength that comes from God. Be blessed right now. We set you free in the name of Jesus. And this cup of water, that it be blessed, consecrated. In the moment that they drink of this water, it can be your spirit entering them free. In Jesus' name, and you who believe say, amen. Amen. Let us drink now with faith. (2420) Dufferin Street is the place for you on Sunday at 10 o'clock in the morning. We're there on the corner of Bowie Avenue and about a block and a half from Eglinton Avenue. You can take the 29 bus or the 929 bus, and you're going to end up right in front of our temple. You want to stop suffering. You want to put an end to this pain that you feel. You want to stop feeling as if there's no solution, as if there's no hope, as if your future has nothing good coming. I promise you, the moment you come here and you use your faith, you're going to be able to see, not only in the lives of other people, but in your lives, that the power of God was the same yesterday, is the same today, and will be the same tomorrow in your life. Have a good one. God bless you.
Sunday of the 7 prayers. In the gathering of faith and miracles, bringing restoration to health, prayer for your deliverance, to your love life, to your family, your financial life, for inner peace, and a real and true encounter with God. There are 7 prayers that will impact your life and destroy all your troubles, bringing new life in every way. Sunday of the Gathering of Faith and Miracles. Sunday at 10 a.m. 2420 Dufferin Street, 1 block north of Eglinton Avenue, and at every Universal Church in Canada.
Join thousands of people every Sunday at 10 a.m. in one faith. based on this word. Again, I say to you that if two of you agree on earth concerning anything that they ask, it will be done for them by my Father in heaven. Matthew 18:19. Receive the 7 prayers.
I don't know how long I had that disease, but the way I found out is I had went to the doctor to have my annual physical. So they called me about the results and told me to get to the hospital because my sugar was so high that was threatening a stroke. So I participated in drinking the blessed water. Faithfully, I did it every day. I just continued in my faith and coming to the church and fighting against it.
Deliverance.
I was a victim of witchcraft. My mother sacrificed me since I was young. I couldn't walk. I was paralyzed for a long time. I don't remember half of my life. I remember being in the hospital. It was King County Hospital. I remember that I had to learn how to walk. I had to learn how to write. I saw demons. People think that evil's not real. It is real. I went to a lot of churches, like 23 Christian church. And I never felt like I felt when I came to the Universal Church. But when I came to this ministry, from the very first time that I stepped through that door, I knew there was hope in this church.
Prosperity.
I had a business that was doing at one point rather well and went down substantially, and experienced just hard times trying to bring it up. I experienced also 3 deaths in my family. My mother, my father, my brother passed away. Then we had the recession, and I really never recovered from that. And it's still hard times, but since I've been coming to the church here, my business is starting to recoup. I see opportunities where my phone is ringing. I want this house built. I want this done. My business is starting to take off to another dimension.
Family.
I was about to separate with my husband, and during the time I was coming to church, I learned to forgive. And when I learned to forgive, I started working on my relationship with my husband. And when my husband never opened up to me, never told me what was going on with his life, until one day I got a knock on the front door, and it turned out to be the police. And I had to learn, okay, God, you are here. I learned through the church, through tribulations, you use your faith. And that's when I said, hey, that God is talking to me. This is a way I'm going to find a solution to my problem.
Love life.
And my husband and I were very happy, loving. Everybody in the neighborhood know us and always want their relationship to be like our relationship. Our relationship was an example that people wants to follow. Until one day I found out that my husband had someone else. And that turned me into a bitter and an angry person. Me surrendering my life to the Lord, I got baptized, was filled with the Holy Spirit. Now I have no hate. I'm not angry. I want to even save other people. Try to counsel other people who are going through problems in their marriage.
Encounter with God.
The suffering in my life, it started with me just basically having pain all over my body. And my mom took me to the doctor. They could not figure out what was wrong with me. I started having headaches, and the headaches get worse. It would go like from maybe a day, 2 days, 3 days. Then I started to have stomach pain. My whole body was in pain. And I just felt like something, just like a brick drop on my head. And I had that headache. It was so bad. And I was sweating. I felt like I was going to pass out. I wake up one Sunday morning and I'm coming to church and I'm like, I'm not leaving the church today without giving my life to God. I'm going to baptize today. And I came to church, service is finished, I got baptized, and I never looked back.
Temple of Miracles, 2420 Dufferin Street, Toronto. 2420 Dufferin Street, Toronto.